welcome back to Friday Reads, where we help you find your next read. I'm Jill.
And I'm Julie, and today we're celebrating books that turn 100 this year. So, Jill, what's your first pick?
So my first one, by Sinclair Lewis, Aerosmith, published on January 1st, 1925. Aerosmith is often described as the first scientific novel. This book explores medical and scientific themes in a fictional way, and it is difficult to think of an earlier book that does this. Although he was not a doctor, Sinclair Lewis's father was, and he was greatly helped in the preparation of the manuscript by his science writer Paul D. Kroof. It was De Kroof who brings a reality to the book that is almost biographical. It is about a man passionately devoted to science. As a bright, lonely boy in a small Midwestern town, Martin Aerosmith spends his free time in old Doc Dickerson's office, avidly devouring medical texts destined to become a physician and a researcher. He discovers that societal forces of ignorance, corruption, and greed can be life-threatening obstacles but he perseveres in a pursuit of scientific truth. The book heralds the real impact of advances in drugs, public health, and immunology that were about to change the world. It also satirizes those medical and scientific practitioners whose pursuit of fame and fortune at the expense of truth remains just as pertinent today. This book was first published in 1925 and was popular and commercial success. It was awarded the Pulitzer Prize in 1926, which was refused by Sinclair Lewis.
Oh, boy.
He later won the Nobel Prize for Literature, which he did accept. So he refused the Pulitzer. No, thank you.
My first pick from 1925 is an Ernest Hemingway collection of short stories called In Our Time. It contains several early Hemingway classics, including the famous Nick Adams stories. And this volume introduces readers to the hallmarks of the famous Hemingway style: a lean, tough prose enlivened by an ear for the colloquial and an eye for the realistic. It also provides key insights into Ernest Hemingway's later works. Hemingway was an American novelist, short story writer, and journalist, best known for an economical, understated style that significantly influenced later 20th century writers. He is often romanticized for his adventurous lifestyle and his outspoken and blunt public image. Most of Hemingway's works were published between the mid-1920s and the mid-1950s, including 7 novels, 6 short story collections, and 2 nonfiction works. His writings have become classics of American literature, and he was awarded the 1954 Nobel Prize in Literature. On a 1954 trip to Africa, he was seriously injured in 2 plane accidents on successive days, leaving him in pain and ill health for much of the rest of his life. In 1959, he bought a house in Ketchum, Idaho, where on July 2nd, 1961, he killed himself using one of his shotguns. So there's a lot of things about Hemingway and his wives. So if you want to check out Introduction to Hemingway and some short stories, check out In Our Time.
Our Time. An easy way to get into him. Although he's very short.
Yeah.
He's known for that. My next one is An American Tragedy by Theodore Dreiser. This was published in the end of 1925, December 17th. An American Tragedy is a story of Clyde Griffiths, who spends his life in a desperate pursuit of success. On a deeper, more profound level, it is a masterful portrayal of a society whose values both shape Clyde's ambitions and seal his fate. It is an unsurpassed depiction of the harsh realities of American life and the dark side of the American dream. Extraordinary in scope and power, vivid in its sense of wholesale human waste, unceasing in its rich compassion, An American Tragedy stands as Theodore Dreiser's supreme achievement. Based on the actual criminal case, the An American Tragedy was the inspiration for the film A Place in the Sun, which won 6 Academy Awards and starred Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift. So,
yeah, should go back and watch that movie. My second pick from 1925 is Manhattan Transfer by John Dos Passos. Considered to be, by many, to be this author's greatest work. It's an expressionistic picture of New York in the 1920s that reveals the lives of wealthy power brokers and struggling immigrants alike. From 14th Street to the Bowery, Delmonico's to the underbelly of the city waterfront, this book chronicles the lives of characters struggling to become a part of modern society before they are destroyed by it. It's described as a masterpiece of modern fiction and a lasting tribute to the dual-edged nature of the American dream. This author was an American novelist and an artist. Considered one of the lost generation writers, he published his first novel in 1920, titled One Man's Initiation 1917, followed by an anti-war story, Three Soldiers, which brought him considerable recognition. But his 1925 novel, Manhattan Transfer, was the huge success. In 1937, he returned to Spain with Hemingway, but the views he had on the communist movement had already begun to change, which sentenced the end of his friendship with Hemingway. In 1930, he published the first book of the USA trilogy, considered one of the most important of his works. Only 30 years later would he be recognized for his significant contribution in the literary field, when in 1967 he was invited to Rome to accept the prestigious Antonio Feltrinelli Prize, not a prize I was familiar with. Over his long and successful career, this author wrote 42 novels, as well as poems, essays, and plays, and created more than 400 pieces of art. So
Wow.
a novelist and an artist. Manhattan Transfer, New York in the 1920s. Having just been in New York, this one intrigues me.
Yes. How relevant are they? Still 100 years later, it's been fun. Okay, so this is Carry On Jeeves. This is the third in a series by P.J. Wodehouse. The titles in the first story of this collection is Jeeves Takes Charge, and the last is Bertie Changes His Mind. They sum up the relationship of the 20th century fiction's most famous comic characters. In between them, the various feeble-minded men and lively young women who populate Wooster's world appeal to Jeeves to solve their problems and are never disappointed. The author P.G. Wodehouse was one of the greatest English comic writers of his time, featuring high farce and social satire. He's best known for his series on the Wooster-Jeeves duo. Wodehouse was born in Surrey in 1881 and educated in Dulwich College. While working in the London office of a bank, he began to publish stories and articles. They were well received. He decided to leave the bank and become a full-time writer. In 1909, he settled in America, where he became known through serializations of his work in the Saturday Evening Post, which I think that looks like a Saturday Evening Post character. He published over 90 books, so Carry On Jeeves if you want to get into this series. I would probably start with the first one to see what's going on with this Jeeves guy.
My next pick comes from an author people should be familiar with also. This is Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway, published in 1925. Heralded as her greatest novel, it's a vivid portrait of a single day in a woman's life. When we meet her, Mrs. Clarissa Dalloway is preoccupied with the last-minute details of party prep, while in her mind she is something much more than a perfect society hostess. As she readies her house, she's flooded with remembrances of faraway times, and met with the realities of the present, Clarissa re-examines the choices that brought her there, hesitantly looking ahead to the unfamiliar work of growing old. Virginia Woolf was an English novelist and essayist, regarded as one of the foremost modernist literary figures of the 20th century. During the interwar period, she was a significant figure in London literary society and a member of the Bloomsbury Group. Her most famous works include this novel, Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse, which she published in 1927, Orlando from 1928, and the book-length essay A Room of One's Own from 1929, with its famous dictum, "A woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction." So check out Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway.
She is definitely on my list of things to read. I need to read more Virginia Woolf. And another famous female author who's published in 1925. This is the first in a series from Agatha Christie, The Secret of Chimneys in the Superintendent Battle, first series. What is the secret of chimneys? A young drifter finds out when a favor for a friend pulls him into the heart of a deadly conspiracy in this captivating classic from Agatha Christie. Little did Anthony Cade suspect that an errand for a friend would place him at the center of a deadly conspiracy. Drawn into a web of intrigue, he begins to realize that the simple favor has placed him in serious danger. As events unfold and combined forces of Scotland Yard and the French Sûreté gradually converge on the chimneys, the great country estate that hides an amazing secret. So I don't know what the secret is. You'll have to read it and find out. And I definitely think that Agatha Christie has lived up. 100 years later, her books are still fun to read.
Exactly. My last pick is a book we've featured before, but it came out in 1925, so I've got F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. F. Scott Fitzgerald's third book, The Great Gatsby, stands as a supreme achievement of his career. This quintessential novel of the Jazz Age has been acclaimed by generations of readers. The story of the mysteriously wealthy Jay Gatsby and his love for the beautiful Daisy Buchanan, of lavish parties on Long Island at a time when the New York Times noted gin was the national drink and sex the national obsession. It's an exquisitely crafted tale of America in the 1920s. Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald, widely known simply as Scott Fitzgerald, was an American novelist, essayist, and short story writer. He's best known for his novels depicting the flamboyance and excess of the Jazz Age, a term he popularized in his short story collection, Tales of the Jazz Age. During his lifetime, he published 4 novels, 4 story collections, and 164 short stories. Although he achieved temporary popular success and fortune in the 1920s, Fitzgerald received critical acclaim only after his death in 1940 at age 44, and is now widely regarded as one of the greatest American writers of the 20th century. So, if you haven't read Gatsby for a while, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Yeah, that one's definitely worth reading too, and is coming to the stage at the Performing Arts Center.
That's right. We're going to have that as a musical next season.
Oh, worth reading first. Well, I hope if you're like want to take a trip back in time and read what people wrote in 1925, 100 years ago, we gave you a good little roundup of what we found.
Yeah, see if these books, you think they're still relevant today. I think a lot of these are. So
yeah, we'd like to hear about it. So
we thank you for watching our videos. You can find them on the Kimberly Public Library website, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. And until next time, Jill and I thank you for watching. Bye.